She vanished from a rest stop in 1998. Her daughter found the truth 25 years later. September 4th, 1998 began as an unremarkable Friday along Interstate 40 in eastern Tennessee. The kind of morning that belonged to no one in particular. Truckers moved westward through the early fog. Families returning from Labor Day weekend packed coolers into minivans and merged onto the highway before the sun had fully risen. Gas stations along the corridor filled and emptied in the quiet rhythm of ordinary travel. Nothing about that morning suggested it would become the beginning of a 25-year search. Carol Weiss was 34 years old. She worked as a medical transcriptionist for a private clinic in Asheville, North Carolina, a job she had held for 6 years without interruption. Her employer described her as meticulous, dependable, and quietly ambitious. She had recently completed a certification course in medical coding and had been discussing a promotion with her supervisor the week before she disappeared. Carol was not someone who left things unfinished. She lived alone in a 2-bedroom apartment on the western edge of Asheville with her daughter, 9-year-old Maya. The apartment was modest but carefully maintained. Neighbors recalled window boxes with small herbs growing along the sill and a welcome mat that Carol replaced every season. She kept a weekly planner on the kitchen counter and crossed off every completed task before the day ended. People who knew her well described the same quality consistently. Carol Weiss did not do anything without a reason. The drive from Asheville to Nashville had been planned for weeks. Carol's older sister, Patricia, had recently moved to Tennessee following a divorce and was settling into a new apartment in the Germantown neighborhood. Carol had volunteered to help her unpack, a trip estimated at 5 hours depending on traffic. She had arranged for Maya to stay with a neighbor for the weekend. She had packed a single overnight bag. She had confirmed her arrival with Patricia by phone the evening before departure. She never arrived. Patricia began calling Carol's cell phone shortly after 2 o'clock that afternoon when her sister had not appeared and had not responded to messages. The calls went unanswered. By 4 o'clock, Patricia contacted the Asheville Police Department to report a concern. Officers explained that an adult had to be missing for a defined period before a formal report could be filed. Patricia spent the remainder of Friday calling every contact in her sister's phone book. By Saturday morning, September 5th, the concern had shifted into alarm. Carol's neighbor confirmed that Maya was safe and that Carol had dropped her off Friday before 7 in the morning as planned. Carol's vehicle, a 1994 silver Honda Accord, had not returned to the apartment parking lot. Her workplace was closed for the weekend. No one had seen or heard from her since Friday morning. Patricia drove from Nashville to Asheville on Saturday afternoon. She filed a formal missing persons report with Asheville police that evening. Officers documented the details. A 34-year-old white female, 5 feet 4 inches tall, medium brown hair, last seen wearing a dark green jacket and jeans. Vehicle description entered into the National Crime Information Center database. Case assigned a file number. The breakthrough in location came not from a witness, but from a phone call made to a state trooper dispatch center in Campbell County, Tennessee, on Sunday, September 6th. A family traveling westbound on Interstate 40 had stopped at a rest area near Caryville, Tennessee, approximately 2 hours east of Nashville. While using the facilities, the father noticed a silver Honda Accord parked at the far edge of the rest area lot. The engine was off. The doors were locked. A woman's purse was visible on the passenger seat. The vehicle had been in the same position when the family arrived and remained there when they left nearly 40 minutes later. No driver had returned to it. Tennessee Highway Patrol responded to the Caryville rest area within the hour. The silver Honda Accord was registered to Carol Ann Weiss of Asheville, North Carolina. Officers documented the scene. The vehicle was locked. The purse on the passenger seat contained Carol's wallet, her identification, $47 in cash, and her cell phone. The overnight bag remained in the back seat, unopened. A half-consumed bottle of water sat in the center console cup holder. There were no signs of a struggle inside the vehicle, no broken glass, no displaced belongings beyond the normal contents of a travel bag. The fuel gauge indicated the tank was still more than half full, suggesting Carol had not stopped at Caryville out of necessity. The rest area itself presented limited surveillance capability. A single camera mounted above the main building entrance covered the central walkway and the primary parking rows. The far edge of the lot where the Accord was parked fell outside the camera's effective range. Investigators retrieved available footage and reviewed it frame by frame. Carol's vehicle was visible entering the lot at 9:47 in the morning. No footage captured her exit from the car. No footage captured any interaction between Carol and another individual in the lot. The camera's angle made the far row invisible. Two witnesses came forward after a public appeal. A retired teacher from Kentucky recalled seeing a silver compact car parked near the tree line at the rest area's edge during a stop she made on Friday morning. She estimated the time at approximately 10 in the morning. She had not noticed the driver. A second witness, a long-haul trucker, reported seeing a woman matching Carol's description standing near the tree line at the eastern edge of the rest area lot at roughly the same hour. He described the woman as appearing to speak with someone outside his line of sight. He had not stopped. He had not looked long enough to identify anyone else present. That detail, a woman near the tree line speaking with an unseen individual, became the primary focus of early investigative activity. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation joined the case by Monday, September 7th. The rest area was treated as a possible crime scene. The surrounding tree line and adjacent wooded area were searched on foot. Cadaver dogs were deployed across a half-mile radius. Nothing was recovered. No clothing, no personal items, no biological evidence beyond what had been found inside the vehicle. Campbell County did not offer easy answers. The rest area sat along a well-traveled corridor connecting the eastern and central regions of Tennessee. Hundreds of vehicles passed through daily. Interstate 40 carried commercial freight, vacationers, and long-distance commuters without pause. Identifying every individual who had used the rest area on September 4th required a level of documentation that simply did not exist. Investigators reviewed fuel purchase records at nearby stations for Carol's vehicle. No transaction was identified. The tank level and travel distance confirmed she had fueled in Asheville before departure and had not stopped for gas since. Her cell phone, recovered from the purse, had last connected to a tower near Caryville at 9:51 in the morning, consistent with her arrival time at the rest area. After that, no further signal was recorded. The case was formally classified as a suspected abduction by mid-September 1998. Patricia Weiss relocated temporarily to Asheville to care for Maya while the investigation continued. Maya remained in school. Her teachers were briefed to monitor for signs of emotional distress. School counselors met with her twice a week. Maya was 9 years old and understood that her mother had not come home. She did not fully understand why. A tip line established by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation received over 200 calls during the first 3 weeks. Most were unverifiable. Reported sightings stretched from Knoxville to Memphis, from Georgia to West Virginia. Each required documentation and follow-up coordination with local agencies. None produced confirmed evidence. Investigators examined Carol's personal life with the thoroughness required by early case protocol. Financial records showed no unusual activity in the weeks before her disappearance. She carried no significant debt. Her credit card showed a purchase at a gas station on the western edge of Asheville at 6:58 in the morning on September 4th. Nothing after that. Her phone records revealed no unknown contacts in the days prior, no threatening messages, no pattern suggesting she had arranged to meet an unfamiliar person. Background checks on Carol's known associates, former partners, and workplace contacts produced no individuals of immediate interest. A former boyfriend she had separated from 2 years earlier was interviewed and cleared through alibi verification. Her ex-husband, Maya's father, had not maintained regular contact with the family since relocating to Oregon in 1995. Oregon authorities confirmed he had been present at his workplace on September 4th. By November 1998, the active investigation had reached its first significant slowdown. No physical evidence beyond the vehicle and its contents had been recovered. No witness had provided actionable identification. The tree line search had yielded nothing. The highway corridor offered no recoverable surveillance beyond the rest area's limited footage. Carol Weiss remained in the National Crime Information Center database. Her file was assigned to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation's Active Cases Unit. Patricia returned to Nashville with Maya after the new year. The apartment in Asheville was vacated. Carol's belongings were placed in storage. A small frame photograph of Carol and Maya taken at a state fair the previous summer sat on top of the last sealed box. Maya Weiss was 9 years old when her mother did not come home from a drive through Tennessee. She would not understand the full weight of what had been lost until she was old enough to carry it herself. The years that followed Carol Weiss's disappearance did not offer resolution. They offered only accumulation. More time, more unanswered questions, more distance between the woman who had vanished and the daughter left to grow up without her. Maya lived with her Aunt Patricia in Nashville through the remainder of her childhood. Patricia had taken custody without hesitation, a decision made quietly and permanently in the weeks following September 4th, 1998. She raised Maya alongside her own routines, her own grief, and her own unanswered letters to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Every year on Carol's birthday in March, and every September on the anniversary of her disappearance, Patricia submitted a written request for case review. The responses were consistent. The case remained open. No new evidence had been identified. Maya adapted the way children in impossible circumstances learn to adapt, which is to say she functioned. She excelled in some ways. She fractured quietly in others. Her teachers in Nashville described her as focused and composed. Her school counselor noted that she rarely spoke about her mother voluntarily. When assignments required personal writing about family, Maya wrote about Patricia and about books she had read and about her plans for the future. She did not write about Carol. That silence was not forgetting. It was protection. By the time Maya graduated from high school in 2007, she had developed a precise internal architecture for managing absence. She did not cry at graduations or holidays. She did not keep photographs of her mother in visible places. She understood, even at 18, that grief carried in the open became something people tried to fix. And she did not want the grief fixed. She wanted the truth. She enrolled at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville in the fall of 2007. She studied criminal justice. This was not accidental. During her undergraduate years, Maya spent evenings reviewing materials Patricia had collected over the years. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation correspondence, newspaper clippings, printed copies of online missing persons forum discussions, the original tip line summary released publicly in late 1998. She organized them into a binder she labeled simply with the year, 1998. Professors who taught her cold case methodology courses noted that she approached coursework with an intensity that went beyond academic interest. One professor, who later became a professional mentor, described her as someone who was not studying the subject from the outside. She was studying it from the inside. After graduation in 2011, Maya joined a victim advocacy nonprofit organization based in Knoxville that worked alongside Tennessee law enforcement on cold cases involving women and children. The position was not law enforcement itself. It was adjacent to law enforcement, a space that allowed her access to procedural knowledge and professional relationships without the jurisdictional limitations of a badge. She spent 3 years learning the bureaucratic geography of cold case files, which databases maintained which records, how interstate coordination worked between state agencies, where documentation went when investigations stalled, what technology existed to revisit evidence collected under older forensic standards. In 2014, she submitted a formal written request to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation asking for access to all archived materials connected to the disappearance of Carol Ann Weiss. The request cited her status as the victim's biological daughter and legal next of kin. After a review period of several months, she was granted access to non-restricted summary documents under the state's victim family disclosure policy. What she found was both more and less than she expected. The file confirmed everything Patricia had told her: the rest area, the vehicle, the purse, the cell phone, the limited surveillance footage, the 2 witnesses, the searches of the tree line, the cleared suspects, the stalled tip line. But buried within a secondary evidence log she had not previously seen, Maya noticed a detail that had not appeared in any public summary. A partial fingerprint had been lifted from the exterior driver's side door handle of Carol's Honda Accord during the initial vehicle processing in September 1998. The print had been entered into the Automated Fingerprint Identification System database at the time. No match had been returned. The print remained in the file, cataloged and preserved, waiting for a database large enough to recognize it. By 2014, the Automated Fingerprint Identification System had expanded significantly from its 1998 state. Millions of additional prints had been entered through arrests, employment checks, military registrations, and federal clearance processes in the intervening 16 years. Maya drafted a letter to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation requesting that the archived partial print be resubmitted for comparison against the current database. The request required approval from the assigned cold case officer. The process took 7 months. In March 2015, the resubmission was authorized. In August 2015, a match was returned. The partial print from Carol Weiss's door handle corresponded to a man named Gerald Foss, 61 years old at the time of the match. Foss had been arrested in Georgia in 2003 on charges of aggravated assault and had been convicted and sentenced to 4 years. His fingerprints had been entered into the federal database upon his conviction. He had been released in 2007 and had resided in eastern Tennessee intermittently since then. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation detective contacted Maya through her victim advocate organization before releasing any further information. The development was significant but required careful evaluation. A fingerprint on an exterior door handle did not constitute direct evidence of abduction. It could reflect a casual interaction at the rest area. It could reflect contact entirely unrelated to Carol's disappearance. Investigators stressed the distinction clearly. Maya understood the legal parameters. She had spent enough years inside procedural frameworks to know that a match and a conclusion were not the same thing. Investigators located Gerald Foss in a rural property in Claiborne County, Tennessee, approximately 40 miles from the Caryville rest area. He was interviewed in September 2015. He denied any memory of September 4th, 1998. He denied ever stopping at the Caryville rest area. He denied any knowledge of Carol Weiss. When presented with a photograph of Carol, his response was documented as a controlled denial without visible agitation. Background research on Foss revealed a history that stretched beyond the 2003 assault charge. In the early 1990s, he had been questioned in connection with the disappearance of a woman in northern Georgia but had never been charged. In 1997, a restraining order had been filed against him by a woman in Knoxville. The order had expired without further legal action. A geographic profile constructed by a behavioral analyst contracted by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation noted that Foss had lived within a 100-mile radius of the Caryville rest area for most of his adult life. His known travel patterns during the late 1990s, reconstructed from employment records and vehicle registration data, indicated regular use of Interstate 40 through Campbell County. Investigators requested a warrant to search Foss's Claiborne County property. The request was reviewed by a judge in the 4th Judicial District. The fingerprint match, the behavioral profile, and the prior history of questioned involvement in a separate disappearance were presented as supporting justification. The warrant was granted in October 2015. The search of the property took 3 days. The rural acreage included a main structure, 2 detached outbuildings, and a section of wooded land bordering a creek. Ground-penetrating radar was deployed across the property's rear section where soil disturbance patterns were inconsistent with natural terrain settlement. On the second day of the search, the radar identified an anomaly approximately 4 feet below the surface near the eastern outbuilding. Excavation proceeded under the supervision of Tennessee Bureau of Investigation forensic personnel. What was recovered from that location was not immediately processed at the scene. The material was transported under chain of custody protocol to the State Forensic Laboratory in Nashville. Maya received a call from the cold case officer the following morning. She was asked to come to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation field office in Knoxville as soon as possible. She drove there alone. The drive from Knoxville to the field office took less than 20 minutes. Maya had made that drive many times in a professional capacity. She knew the building, the waiting area, the smell of institutional coffee left on a burner too long. She knew the rhythm of how investigators delivered information in stages. She had watched them do it for others. She had not expected to be on the receiving end of it herself. Not yet. Not after 17 years. The cold case officer, a woman named Detective Hargrove, who had been assigned to the Weiss file 18 months earlier, met Maya in a private conference room rather than the standard interview area. That choice alone communicated something before any words were spoken. The material recovered from the Claiborne County property had been processed overnight. Forensic specialists confirmed the presence of human skeletal remains. The remains were consistent in age and physical profile with an adult female. Dental records requested from Carol Weiss's Asheville dentist through Patricia had been transmitted electronically to the state forensic laboratory. Comparison had been conducted immediately. The match was confirmed. Detective Hargrove delivered the information carefully and directly. She did not soften it beyond what dignity required. Carol Ann Weiss had been located. She had not survived. Maya sat with that confirmation for a long time before speaking. She had spent 17 years preparing herself for both possibilities simultaneously. The possibility that her mother was alive somewhere and the possibility that she was not. Carrying both had been the only way to keep searching without breaking completely. Now, one possibility had been removed. What remained was not relief. It was not devastation. It was the strange and heavy finality of knowing. She asked 2 questions. The first was whether Carol had suffered. The forensic answer available at that stage was incomplete and carefully framed. The second question was whether Gerald Foss would be charged. Detective Hargrove confirmed that an arrest warrant for Gerald Foss was being processed simultaneously with the notification to Maya he would be taken into custody before the end of the day. Gerald Foss was arrested at his Claiborne County property on October 22, 2015. He was charged with first-degree murder in the death of Carol Ann Weiss. He was also charged with abuse of a corpse and evidence tampering due to the manner in which the remains had been concealed on his property. He was transported to the Campbell County Detention Facility and held without bond. Patricia Weiss received the notification from Maya by phone. She had been waiting for a call like this for 17 years, though she had never fully admitted that to anyone. The silence on the line lasted nearly a full minute before either of them spoke. There were no words adequate to the moment. They stayed on the phone for a long time without needing many of them. The formal identification of Carol's remains was completed in November 2015. DNA comparison using a reference sample submitted by Maya confirmed the identification beyond any scientific uncertainty. Carol Ann Weiss, who had disappeared from a rest area along Interstate 40 on September 4, 1998, had been located on a rural property in Claiborne County, Tennessee, 17 years later. The legal process that followed moved through the Tennessee court system over the next 2 years. Gerald Foss entered a not guilty plea. His defense attorneys challenged the admissibility of the fingerprint evidence and the behavioral profile used to obtain the search warrant. The prosecution responded with forensic testimony, geographic evidence, and historical documentation, connecting Foss to the corridor where Carol had disappeared. The prior disappearance in Georgia and the Knoxville restraining order were admitted as pattern evidence under applicable Tennessee evidentiary rules. In April 2017, Gerald Foss was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. He offered no statement during sentencing. He did not look at Maya, who sat in the front row of the gallery beside Patricia throughout the proceeding. Maya had attended every day of the trial. She had dressed carefully each morning, arrived early, and taken notes in a small notebook she carried throughout. Former colleagues from her victim advocacy work recognized the posture. It was the posture of someone who had decided that presence itself was an act of witness, and that witness mattered even when outcomes could not be controlled. After the verdict, Maya spoke briefly outside the courthouse to a small group of reporters. She did not describe the outcome as closure. She described it as completion. She said that closure implied the wound had healed. Completion meant the search had ended. Those were different things. She said she was grateful to Detective Hargrove, to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and to the forensic specialist who had recognized that a partial fingerprint from 1998 was still worth resubmitting in 2014. She said she was grateful to the technology that had expanded the database far enough to find a match. She said her mother had deserved someone who would not stop asking. In the years following the conviction, Maya remained connected to victim advocacy work. Though her role shifted, she began consulting with cold case review units in Tennessee and neighboring states on cases involving adult female victims lost along interstate corridors. She developed a working knowledge of highway abduction patterns, rest area surveillance gaps, and the administrative vulnerabilities that allow perpetrators to operate across jurisdictional lines without triggering coordinated attention. She also worked with a team of legislative advocates in Tennessee to support the passage of updated standards requiring longer retention periods for biological and trace evidence collected at scenes involving missing persons. The law, passed in 2019, was named informally after Carol Weiss by members of the advocacy coalition that had supported it. Maya did not ask for a formal naming. When informed of the informal designation, she said only that her mother would have considered it a reasonable outcome. Every year on September 4th, Maya drove to the Caryville Rest area. The facility had been updated since 1998, improved lighting covered more of the parking area, extended surveillance covered zones that had once fallen outside camera range. Families still stopped there in the same rhythm they always had, stretching their legs on long drives, refilling water bottles, letting children run briefly across the grass before returning to the road. Maya parked in the far row each year. She sat for a while. She did not bring flowers or photographs. She brought only the memory of a woman who had crossed every task off her planner, who replaced her welcome mat every season, who had driven out on a September morning to help her sister unpack boxes. She brought the memory of a mother who had not deserved to disappear, and she brought the knowledge, earned through 17 years of searching, that disappearance was not the same as being gone, that a partial fingerprint preserved on a door handle for 16 years could still find its match, that a daughter who refused to stop asking questions could eventually bring the answers home. Carol Weiss had vanished from a rest stop in 1998. It had taken 25 years for the full truth to come to light, but the truth had come, and it had come because one person had refused to let the file close. Thank you sincerely for taking the time to listen to today's story. In a world that moves quickly and forgets easily, your presence here means something real. Stories like Carol's remind us that the missing are never truly gone as long as someone continues to search for them. They remind us that evidence preserved with care, questions asked without surrender, and love that refuses to become silence can still change what seemed permanent. What we carry from this story is simple but necessary. Do not stop asking. Do not accept absence as an answer. And never underestimate what one person willing to keep looking can eventually find. If this story stayed with you, if it moved something inside you, please support this channel by pressing the like button, leaving your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribing so you do not miss the stories still to come. Your support allows these voices to reach further than they could alone. Thank you for listening.